I went back one last time, not because I had to, because I had a question, the only question left, and I needed to look at his face when he answered it. "Tell me about Isobel's eyes," I said. He was quiet for a very long time. And then he told me something that restructured the last 7 days entirely. Not the answer I expected, not the answer I feared, something rarer than both. The truth. You have been listening to me tell this story for 7 days. I have been honest with you in the way I am always honest, precisely, selectively, and with a clear sense of what I needed you to understand before you could understand the rest. Here is the rest. I will not qualify it. I will not frame it. Here it is exactly as it is. I did choose Celeste because she looked like Isobel. That is true. What Vale got wrong, what everyone got wrong, is what that means. They assumed it meant I was replacing her. They assumed it meant she was interchangeable. They assumed it meant my feeling for her was a projection. They were wrong. It meant something far simpler and far more complicated. It meant that when I read her paper and then found her author photograph, I recognized something not just in her face, but in her mind, her precision, the exact quality of attention she brings to the world. I recognized someone who would understand. Not understand me, understand everything. That was the reason, not the face, the mind behind it. I would like to say I'm sorry for not telling her sooner. I'm not certain I am. I'm certain the outcome would have been different if I had. She came back. That was the thing. She had every reason not to. Her access had been technically suspended. The investigation was underway. The rational choice was to let the process work. She came back because she had a question that could not wait. He was in the session room. Not sitting, standing at the window for the first time in her experience, looking at the sea. When she entered, he turned around and she understood from his expression that he had been expecting her and had also been uncertain she would come. She sat down, he sat down. She looked at him across the table and said, "Tell me about Isobel's eyes." He was still for a long moment. Then he said, "I have spent 3 years being very careful about what I wanted. Because what I wanted and what was available were not the same thing. But you are not Isobel, Celeste. You have never been Isobel to me. You are the person I recognized in a photograph and decided I needed to talk to. The face was the first thing I saw. It was not the reason." The regulatory investigation moved with a speed that Celeste would later understand was driven by the seriousness of what Nadia had testified, not just about Isobel's death, but about the earlier patient death Vale had buried. 2 deaths, 1 career built on their concealment. Vale was suspended pending investigation 4 days after Celeste's report. He was not arrested, not yet, but the suspension was the kind from which careers do not recover. The facility was placed under external oversight. Dorian's committal was referred for immediate review. Dorian was out in 19 days. She was there when he left. She had not decided to be, and then she was. He came through the main door with nothing, no bag, nothing to carry. 3 years inside, and he had accumulated nothing he wanted to take with him. He stopped when he saw her. They stood in the car park for a moment. The sea was audible from where they stood. The sky was clear, the first clear day she had seen since arriving on the coast. Light fell on the facility in a way that made it look almost beautiful. She thought of the session room, the folded paper, the 11 minutes she had not reached for it, the photograph in her coat pocket that she had put back in the cabinet the second time she went in. because it was evidence and evidence belonged to the investigation. She thought about his voice on the first day, saying her name. "Hello, Celeste." She said, "Hello, Dorian." And then, because she had 12 years of clinical practice and none of it had prepared her for this, now what? He said, "I have a list." She waited. "Things I want to do," he said, "now that I can, in order of priority." He paused. "You're not on the list." She felt something that she would later describe to Petra, on the phone, as structural failure. The sensation of a weight-bearing element giving way, and then realizing it had been bearing the wrong load. "Why not?" she asked. "Because," he said, "things on a list are things to be completed. I don't want to complete you. I want to," he stopped. He looked at the sea. "I want to see what you make of the world when the extraordinary circumstances clear. I want to disagree with your clinical methodology and be told I'm wrong. I want to eat a meal that isn't served to me in a room I cannot leave." She started laughing. She had not expected that. He looked at her with those dark, still eyes and something in them that was not still at all. "Is that a yes?" he asked. "That's a start," she said. Vale was charged 14 months later with 2 counts of negligent manslaughter and 1 count of perverting the course of justice. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The verdict took a day and a half. Nadia testified. She had been waiting to for 3 years. She said so in court, and it was the most human thing in 2 weeks of legal proceedings. Dorian did not testify. His statement was read aloud by counsel. It was 12 pages and architecturally precise, and the journalists covering the trial described it, independently of each other, as the most compelling document submitted in the case. Celeste attended every day of the trial. She sat in the gallery and took notes she didn't need and watched Dorian in the rows below. He sat with a stillness that she now understood had never been passivity, had never been emptiness, had always been the particular quality of a man who knew how to wait for the right moment, and had learned to wait for a very long time. On the last day of the trial, walking out of the courthouse, he found her in the crowd without looking for her. Or rather, he had known exactly where she was because he always did and said without preamble. "I had an idea about a building. I'd like to tell you about it." She said, "Tell me." He did, for 4 hours, over dinner, with the focus he brought to everything that mattered to him. She disagreed with his load distribution on the 3rd floor. He told her she was wrong. She was right, and they both knew it. Some things you do not plan. Some things you arrange the conditions for with patience and precision and a great deal of quiet faith. And then something else does the rest. There is a lamp in the entrance hall at Blackwell Institute that has been burning since the facility opened in 1923. When the building came under new management following the investigation, an audit was conducted. The lamp had no timer, no automatic switch. No one alive knew who had first lit it or why it had been maintained. It was still burning when the building was repurposed 3 years later. The new director left it. "Some things," she said, "you stop trying to explain. Some things you simply let continue." Dorian, when told about this, said, "I know. I used to sit in the session room and watch it through the door. On the worst nights, it was the thing I used to remember that light is just light. It can outlast anything." On the back of Celeste's first published paper after the trial, a paper on institutional accountability and clinical ethics that is still taught in postgraduate programs, the dedication reads simply, "For I who deserved better." and for the people who find each other in the finding out. Some stories end with a body and a question. This one ends with a light that nobody turned off, and two people who decided that what came after the extraordinary circumstances was better than either of them had planned. That is not a happy ending. That is something rarer, a true one.